So automatic constraints means like this here the ability, your involvement in the thought process, uh, in simple words, like for example, you about to sleep, but without your involvement, all of a sudden you started thinking about the tomorrow task in the your workplace, about your manager, and how to deal with tomorrow manager and this project and all those things. But though you don't want it, but it comes into the, so the higher it is, then you will the higher automatic constraint. That means like you have less control over this thought process, and it keeps always in the loop mode, always thinking, and it will go on. In best example, if you say, um, when you have, for example, in a best scenario in the day-to-day life, when you lost your loved ones, it could be a grandparents or a father or a mother, and though you don't want to think and you don't want to get upset or have a grief, but it always comes into the mind. Or it could be also positive thing, like when India won match against Pakistan, you will always think, wow, like in 12 balls, Virat Kohli scored maybe 40 runs or 30 runs. It's wonderful. In a whole day, you will always think about that event. Maybe it gives a pleasure to your happiness, but even if you try to stop it, but it's because of happiness itself. But and if it is very obsessive, if it is a continuous and strong, and if it is strong and continuous, that's it creates an obsessive thought. Obsessive thought is something I can say it's a mental illness. Purely, it's a mental illness. So this is where you can take the thoughts, and then we can see like how the spontaneous thought or goal-directed thoughts or obsessive thoughts or a mental illness things forms are addressing these things before. What is the thought, like how this, what is the source of these thoughts, how they are forming. We'll try to dig into it. So then I told you, like when we say thought, it's always associated with consciousness and mind, and these are the two problems. So how we can actually map the brain cognitive functions? Mainly we use FM. I don't want to go very deep into the neuroscience because the audience are from different disciplines, could be engineering, mathematics, physics. So I try to keep it as simple as I can so that everyone could follow it. So basically we can map the brain function using fMRI means magnetic resonance imaging. When you give a task to the person, if he sees the face of some person, then if he says yes, then you can see which are the region of the brain is active. And when he doesn't see the face and the visual stimuli is not there, then you do see the where the brain regions are active. Then you can actually see the contrast, and these are the research associations for the recognizing the object and everything. In that way, you can map all the brain region for different two cognitive functions. For example, frontal lobe, responsible for emotion, decision making, and organization, and cerebellum for skill memory and movement coordination, etc. So that you can map everything. But these all studies based on the pure correlation. Okay, you show the object, or you give the any stimuli, and certain brain region is getting active. But the question is, does this brain region, whichever active, or these neuronal circuits, give rises this specific function, whatever memory, or it could be emotion or feeling. So let's see. And how this, also these all things, you require a consciousness, these all emotions and feelings and everything. And does this neuron or brain, does it gives rise to consciousness or something? And second thing, like, uh, okay, let's see. So we had a discussion in the last 2 weeks back in the lab. One of my friend, a colleague, he said, after seeing this news in the Nature, this, in a simple term, I'll say, He's Christoph. He's a great scientist in the neuroscience. He is a director for Helen Institute of Brain Research in Seattle in USA. Okay, he's a very great scientist in trying to find the consciousness. And Chalmers is another philosopher. They had a bet or a wager in the year of 1998. The bet was very simple. The Christoph said, we will prove in 25 years how brain gives rise to consciousness. And we'll have an answer for that. We'll address the consciousness thing. And last June 23rd of this year, 25 years is over, and still we don't have any answer how consciousness is coming from, brain consciousness coming from. At least we don't have answer at this moment, but Christoph accepted that he couldn't, of course, all neuroscientists, like not all neuroscientists, but he at least accepted as a leading scientist in the field that we couldn't solve the consciousness problem, or at least brain does not keep right. At least he doesn't have answer that consciousness coming from the brain. And but again, this bet again they invested for again he handed over the one whatever bet they bet he handed over to Chalmers, and again they agreed, okay, let's put another 25 years. We'll able to answer consciousness or something. And also I tried to, one of my colleagues, he also want to bet with me about the consciousness. I said, no, brain cannot give consciousness. He said, brain can give. But our bet is only for 20 years, so that whatever, if whoever wins, at least they can enjoy the money coming from the bet. So at the end, so the conclusion is, at this moment, we don't have any definite answer that brain can give rise to consciousness, but we don't. At least brain does not produce consciousness, or we don't have answer yet. So the question next, like thought, we know that my mind state is not good now, so I cannot think anymore about my research. That's what I say. Whenever you say about the thought, it's always comes to the mind. This is again another problem in the neuroscience, or at least in the life science. So the question is whether neuronal circuits or in neurons firing produce a thought. I'm trying to keep it as simple as I can. And the question is like, we can, okay, we'll try to address. And I will try also, okay, how you can test any gene function. Either you mutate or disturb that function, so that if you don't see it, then you can say it is this gene is responsible for this particular function. For example, skin color. If particular gene is responsible, if mutation in that gene, people have vitiligo or butt color. So you can say, and you complement that gene and say, restore that function and say, okay, this gene is responsible for this. So mental illness, this is another thing. I told you, when you have an obsessive thought process or a strong deliberate constraint, also autonomic constraint, which I showed the picture in the beginning, then in that case, you have a strong, continuous, reminiscent thought process that actually create disturbances. In other words, it's called mental illness. There are several mental illnesses. Here I mentioned the depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, obsessive compulsive disorder. If you can understand how thoughts are forming, if you can control it, and then you can treat all mental illness in the world, and then there are, I think, 40 million people are affected with mental illness. Even in the academic research, also many people affected with mental illness. If you can understand or address like how thoughts forming and what is the source, then you can you can actually save many people's life. So people try to look at the brain function and neurotransmitters, neural circuits. And again, problem is, hey, like it's a correlation study. We don't have any definite answer. And you can see I will come to this slide a bit later. And in the year of 1990, USA government announced called the Project Brain. This decade is filed. They pumped a lot of billions of dollars to tackle the mental illness in the using the genetics and biological basis like neuroscience and metabolism. And then this is now 2023, it's almost 30 years. So here you can see where we are actually in understanding this mental illness and this thing. If you understand this thing, and you can also understand the thoughts and everything. So he says he's the Thomas Insel. He was a former director of National Institute of Mental Health, one of the leading institute and funding agency for understanding this mental illness and thought processes in USA. And then now in 2015 or 2016, he moved to Calico, Google-based neuroscience, not neuroscience, aging institute, which is like similar to our institute. And he said, I spent 13 years and to pushing, like they try to investigate in the, to find biological basis and neuroscience agentic basis in the understanding mental disorders. But he said, when I look back, I realized that a while I succeeded at getting a lot of very cool papers published by cool scientists at fairly large cost. I think it's $20 billion. I don't think we moved the needle in reducing suicide, reducing hospitalization, improving recovery for the tens and millions of people who have mental illness. So we didn't actually have progressed anything in understanding the mental illness. If you understand my mental illness or this thing, you can also thought. In other way around, if you understand formation of thoughts and what is thought and how they're forming, you can also address this mental illness problem. So another psychiatrist is one of the good psychiatrists. He said in the psychiatric research, and it's been 30 years, still we don't have any biological test for a psychiatric disorder, none in the pipeline. And it's like, people say, okay, increase the serotonin level or reduce the dopamine level, but that theory is panned out. It's no more like that theory. So we cannot basically, we don't have any drug or any treatment to the psychological treatments. Most of them, they use give the subscription, which are more sedative and reduce the serotonin, but many people not benefited at all. So these mental illness, always people get confused with mental disorders or mental illness with a neurodegenerative disorder. For example, you have a Alzheimer's disease, which is neurodegenerative disease, or Huntington's disease. You have an effect with a short-term memory and very many other cognitive functions. People lose them. And that time you think, okay, brain affected with this, for example, Huntington disease, repeat expansion in the chromosome, Huntington gene, that CAG repeats, that causes the. But in these mental neurodegenerative diseases, you can see what is the brain region get affected, and you can know what genes are involved in it, for example, and you have definitely the biological marker. Biological marker, biomarker means, for example, if you know if you have a cancer, if you have a kidney disease, you just go to the doctor and he will just write for the creatine levels, measure the creatine levels and urea levels, and then you know that your kidney is affected, kidney dysfunction. Like that, you have a readout biomarker for cancer, everything, all the biological diseases. When it comes to mental illness, you don't have any biomarker to diagnosis, just and we don't have any genetic basis. Means we cannot say one particular gene is responsible for this mental illness. So far, we don't have it. There are large set of genome-wide association studies went on, and linkage analysis, we couldn't find anything. And there is no proper diagnosis to diagnose. Always we have a, like you have a rule book, and in that book you ask the questionnaire, and if people score this many points, and they have a mental illness, clinical depression, whatever is, there is assessment. But we don't have any, like, and biological basis. For example, in hunting Alzheimer's or Huntington or any amyloid lateral sclerosis or something, you always see certain brain region affected, and you can, by imaging, or you can see these things. I work with cerebral ataxia, one of the neurodegenerative disease. Mostly now, currently, I'm working on it, and last 5 years also. So there is always a difference between the neurodegenerative disease and mental illness. So this is always confusion that, sometimes you loss of memory with the neurodegenerative diseases and some cognitive functions. Then people always assume that, okay, everything coming, all these coming from the brain. But at the same time, you don't see any difference in the brain activity or brain structure or anything when person have a mental illness with the symptoms. That means, and most of the studies in the brain research, what we showed, it's a purely correlation. Correlation is a causation. Okay, I will tell you why. So in a genetic research, to produce this snail, this color, brown color, compound has to be converted into B, and B converted to C. When you have a blockage in the C, you cannot produce a brown color. Even when you have a mutation in the enzyme 1, again, you cannot produce the brown color because you cannot run this pathway. Similarly, if it could be mind, there could be something, if there is a mind, if it is upstream of this thing, if it can produce the thoughts, or it could be something, and it transmits to the brain, and then you have a thoughts and creativity and everything. If brain is dysfunction, again, you don't see this phenotype, thoughts or creativity, memory, and everything. Even you have any mind, but still brain is fully functional, again, you have this thing. That means definitely there could be something beyond brain playing a role in the formation of thought and behavior and cognitive functions. But we don't have any scientific tools to probe beyond brain. So as a scientist, you should be more open, and you should be embrace to tackle this problem. You cannot confine to one kind of hypothesis. So what actually, do we have any answers in any views in other domain? So then if you carefully look at in Vedanta, they have very clear and definitive answer, means the clear and definitive answers they provided. Okay, in Vedanta, here you see the physical body, that's mean what you are seeing, me or you, made up of lipids, proteins, and DNA, RNA, and nucleic acid, my bone structure, whatever. At the end, you make all these things. And you also have subtle bodies called Sukshma Sharira. It is mind, intellect, ego, manas, buddhi, and ahankara. And the Sukshma Sharira, it's called, in fairly terms, you can say manas or mind, you can altogether. I am generalizing more. And you also have Karna Sharira, like as well, that means Atma, that is you, that means the person who's speaking, that me, and the person who's listening, you, is the person who observer and observed. And this Atma, or a soul, it has a consciousness, and it spreads through the Shukma Sharira and Sthula Sharira, so that I'm aware of my movement and fingers, what I'm talking about, and I can also experience what I'm doing it. And this consciousness comes from, and this soul. So we don't have any access with whatever scientific advancement, the tools, and Shukma Sharira and Atma. But we have very good, fairly good enough access to physical body, so that we can diagnose this liver, kidney, all the lipids and all the nutrients, vitamins and everything. We can profile it. You can do the profiling of all the metabolites and we can find the disease. So Vedanta says your impressions, okay, we'll say. So Vedanta says your always input, it could be touch, smell, and hearing, whatever it is, those sensory inputs, also some mental inputs, it could not be sensory inputs, they actually creates kind of subliminal impressions. It's called samskara. And those are accumulated in the Shukra Sharira, in the mind. So, the Sukshma Sharira and physical body and the subtle body, and these two is associated and connected well with by prana, according to Patanjali Yoga Sutra. When you don't have prana, the vital energy, you will lose the connection between the subtle body, Sukshma Sharira, and physical body, the body which you are seeing. Then when you lost this vital energy or a prana, you can say person is dead. Then he doesn't have any cognitive function. I don't think he has any thought process at that moment, visibly thought process. But this Shukma Sharira and Atma, this is continuous. The movement depends on your sensory inputs. You know, what kind of inputs you provide, the outcome also will be like this. If it is sattva, means it's in a pure, I forgot the word, goodness, mode of goodness, or tranquil. It creates a tranquility and steadiness in the mind, and thoughts will be very clear and continuous, very nice way. And if the sensory input, if it is very hesitate in nature, and if those things, and it creates restless and hesitation. And if your mental and sensory inputs and thought process is very calm, and you have a dull and lethargy, lack of motivation, everything. So it's always very important what actually kind of sensory inputs you are providing and you are taking actually. Depends on the outcome of your thoughts also will be there. And if you could control the kind of sensory input or a mental input, if it is more in a good manner, and when you cultivate with a good, when you have a good input, then you also have a good kind of thoughts and everything. So, and if you say the pure thoughts are and good thoughts and lower thoughts, which are means not actually, it's not a good word to say, it's a lower thought or something. And we can say these thoughts could associate with rajas and tamasic vasanas. Samskaras means the impressions. You experience many things in this lifetime, and those all create some kind of impressions in your mind, in the Sukshma Sharira. And these things get activated when they associate with these energies, forces like Rajas, Tamas, and everything that creates a vasanas, means the tendencies, behavior you have. I don't like so taste, but how you say that, like what is the basis, like why I don't like so taste? I like the sweets, but this kind of vasanas, you have a particular, these things creates. And when you are free from these vasanas means not a, tendencies, behavioral tendencies, this thing, and samskaras, then you are free from the bondage. So in the higher thoughts, when it's in sattva, you have a freedom from the bondage, a freedom from the karma. And when you are in the lower thoughts, it's actually in the mind, it creates the bondage and everything. And these thoughts actually makes you have a clear thinking. And here actually you are bound to again addicted to, when if your inputs are not good, if you are not taking good care of yourself, associated with a bad company and bad intake, then it's also create kind of addictions. And why I'm telling is like, it's also very important to know not only what is the source of thoughts, it's also important to cultivate good thoughts so that you can be more peaceful and happy. At the end, everyone wants to be happy. So actually, you can go through literature and you can find, we don't have much time to go in detail here. But how you can cultivate pure thoughts? There are different ways so that, you don't, when you have a pure thoughts, you have a good memory and you can more focus on your studies and everything. So how actually you can cultivate pure thoughts or a good thoughts? There are in the Vedanta, there are 5, 6 things they listed. I will explain a couple of them. And one is food and actions. The actions we perform are then it creates samskars and vasanas, and deliberation and discrimination. I will go in detail about all these things and the detachment and worshipping the Lord. So, so pure thought. The first thing is like according to Chandragiri Upanishad, like you can read the commentary of Ramanacharya or Aishankaracharya. It says like Vimshati Ahara Shuddho, Sattva Shuddho, Dhruva means like if you eat pure food, then your mind becomes pure. When your mind becomes pure, then you can have a good thoughts and pure thoughts, and then you are happy and your memory is good and you are more focused on your studies, and you are eventually you can think, you can also see things as it is, not by illusion things, and it creates a free from the bondage. Free from the bondage here means from the free from the karma. So pure food means what? Like it should be pure in the content, whatever the food which is good in nature, and also it says that the environment which you cook also should be pure, and also third one is the consciousness of the person who's also influence on the food preparation in according to Ramanacharya. And so it's also when the person is very angry, upset, and in the depression, with food also uh, get affected. So first basis is this thing. And second, actions, what actions you are performing. For example, what kind of input you are giving. When you are cultivating very bad habits, it creates impression, and at the end leads to those impressions in the mind accumulated in the Shukra Sharira, and that creates a tendency to our vasanas, and then it reflects in your behavior, and at the end your behavior get affected. And discrimination and vicharana or viveka, with wise and discrimination using buddhi, you can discriminate and stop the bad thoughts, and you can avoid it, and you can not associating those activities or not associating with those kind of mental inputs, and you can go for this thing. That helps you again have a pure mind and pure thought process. Vairagya means, okay, to have in a simple term, not in a high level, but in a simple term, you can be dissociated from the bad stuff so that you can cultivate it. Last one is like another thing is meditation that also clears off many impurities in the mind, and means removes the samskara, subliminal impressions which are accumulated over a time in that clears off. That's a thing. And the last one is worshipping the Lord, and it says that taja tada rajas tamo bhavam. Okay, this sloka, like if you read, we don't have much time, and it says that when you perform loving service, in loving service, it means in other terms, it's a bhakti in our term, and it clears off many impurities in the mind. It could be desires and hankering, and which are associated with the mode of fashion and ignorance. and it gives a goodness, and you will be completely happy, and your thought will be pure. And also to get and with the knowledge and associating with the bad, dissociating from the bad things, you can also cultivate this. That is also happened. Bhagavatam says, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoge Prayojita Janayati Asu Vairakyam Jnanam Yat Haituki. Haituki means the moment you cultivating or loving devotion or bhakti, automatically vairagya and knowledge comes immediately. When you have a good knowledge about this real knowledge, that means self and non-self, about the self, then when you can, in a very simple term, how you can clear off these all impurities. In a dark room, when you kindle the lamp, it dissipates the darkness and it clears, and the luminous covers the whole room. Like that, even though it accumulated all impurities in the mind over a period of time, but you can clear off by kindling bhakti, and it clears all the impurities. Okay, and in the summary, at least we don't have any answer at this moment that the brain can actually produce a thought. We don't have any neurological basis to produce a thought. And mental illness or a mind or whatever thoughts, which is obsessive in nature, does not have any genetic or a biological basis. And according to Vedanta, mind, the thoughts actually comes from self and filtered through the mind, and ultimately it comes out. And cultivating good habits, and it helps you to avoid unwanted and destructive thoughts. So thank you. If you have any question, feel free to ask.
Sir, is it okay?
Yes, please.
So we'll open the stage for the audience to question for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
No question? Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Yes,
Can
I
you hear
can
me?
hear. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So my question is like, okay. Thank you. So my question is, like can we map, classify bad thought and good thought using FRMI machine, or by mapping the brain, can we classify whether it is good thought or not? Because it's important, like you told about illness and neurological disorders and mental disorders. So is there any way or any technique where you can distinguish between good thought and bad thought in the data of machine?
So actually, many people are actually trying to map about the different thoughts, like a creative thought, a spontaneous thought, and whatever, maybe it's you can say uh, good and bad thought. But at this moment, results are not very concrete. So maybe it will take some more time uh, with the availability of new technology and tools to really map the neuronal circuits, which is actually associating with different kind of thoughts. And but of course, this is only correlation, but does not answer that thought is coming from those neurons. Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I had this question that you said that brain is not a producer of thought, can we call it a receiver of thought? Like, can you comment on this?
Instead of receiver, I can say it can, yeah, you can say transmitting, I would say. Transmitter, like, for example, like when you have a TV, so when you break the display, you lose the analogy is you lose the visual things, right? But that is not, it's actually producing the everything is coming from the YouTube, which is already is in the, somebody prepared the content, so it's only displaying. I think I would say brain is transmitting the things. uh, I don't know whether it's a good word to use the receiver or transmitter. Yeah, it's, but yes.
Okay.
So I want to ask you if any research has been done on on the debate between determinism and free will. So can you comment on that? In the picture that you presented, how does free will or determinism and any of those two options, how does it fit?
Yes, there was some, if I remembered, there are people, they try to address this question in cognitive psychology. Actually, back in days, I read about some papers from Zurich, but it's very hard. Actually, it's a gray area. We don't have a definite answer for that. Actually, if you want, I can forward those papers.
So last question.
Yes.
Sir, can you please say that how is thought related to memory?
Yes. You most of the time you always think the source is memory. Actually, like from the memory, your thought process goes on. One of the main thing. So whatever the things, like if you don't have a memory or memory retrieval or memory thing, and I don't know, like your thought process also get affected. So that way, like memory is also basis for this thought process.
That means if we make positive thought, our memory will increase.
According to Vedanta, yes, but I don't know. I never tested.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Chandrakanth, it is so nice presentation. In fact, just I have one query. If the memory is every source for everything, and
Not,
if
okay.
yeah, please.
No, yeah, go ahead.
So if the memory is indispensable, then if it is not there, then you said that then there is no thought process. That is what I mean. I understood from this. So how this idea, which is coming as an inspiration, then if there is no memory, then how I can get the inspiration? Or vice versa, if the memory is not indispensable, how the inspiration is coming from?
So one thing is, I'm not saying that I'm okay. I didn't say that memory is everything. Certainly, memory is also required for the thought processing. It also plays a role. First thing, it's not the ultimate. And of course, we don't have any right and good answers especially in the neuroscience. How this creative thinking or a spontaneous splash thing comes, thinking arises. Yeah, at least in the neuroscience, we don't have any great answers. In Vedanta, it says that there's one sloka in Bhagavad Gita. It says Matra Smritin. It says that in simple term, memory and some kind of thought, inspirations comes from super soul also.
Okay, Srikanth, very good lecture. Just a quick thought, like the as you expressed that there are difficulties uh, to understand thought or mind using brain, or so could we now or eventually in future, like in physics, we came up with a uncertainty, the kind of limits we encountered, right? So could we think of kind of uncertainty equation in neuroscience now or slowly, so that we are black and white clear, these are the limits? Or do you think this kind of thought is a useful thought, feasible direction?
Yeah, actually, I have a limitation here in understanding about uncertainty theory applying in the neuroscience because lack of knowledge in especially this Heisenberg equation here. But I don't know how you apply in the physics and get a black and white answer. But I think it takes some time to really convince or get majority of the scientists to look for the alternative view. At this moment, we still hold on brain actually. I'm sorry, actually, I don't know how to apply that equation in neuroscience. Hello, is anyone there? Did I lose connection?
No, you are online.
Yeah. So is there any questions, other questions?
Yeah, we have a question online.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, I will check.
Yeah.
Okay, but he said I had a
Yes.
question, but he didn't
Kishan, please
mention.
unmute yourself.
Yeah, hello, sir. So,
Yes, please.
like I had a question on like impressions on the brain. So, like I've read somewhere that just like a computer is trained on neural networks, like suppose an image is presented and then it trains itself. So, does our brain work like that? That it converts everything we see into electrical signals and stores in the memory?
Yeah, that is a good question. Actually, I was also looking at okay. Yeah, this is active research going on. Like it's called NGRAM that they held in the memory research. That this problem. I'll tell you frankly what we are facing. We know that these regions are responsible for the memory and everything, but we don't have solid proof that this neuronal firing or particular formation of neuron circuit, especially how we don't have a definite answer how memories are stored and retrieved. So when it comes to whether, of course, neurons also uses this kind of electrochemical signal, this thing, but I'm not sure that at this moment we don't know in future whether memories can be stored, but sometimes some kind of memories, for example, I don't know how to explain people who are having memory which are like from the past life, because past life brain is different and this life brain is different. And also we can first of all, whether we can create a memory. For example, we can also, with the brain stem cell, neuronal pluripotent stem cells, we can create a brain organoids. They are having electric signal and everything, electrochemical signal, they are firing and everything. And again, the question is same, how do you know that it is storing the memories? So maybe future, we bet on the future actually.
Thank you, sir. Any more
Thank you.
questions?
Yeah. Further on this question, like you said, like memories come like sometimes, like when we are doing meditation or chanting and normal. So sometimes memories from the past they come randomly. So does it mean anything? Like someday like today. So I, for example, I had a memory of a friend from 3 or 5 years ago. So that comes on random. So what does it mean something, or like does it signify something?
What does it mean? Like, you mean, does it mean anything? Means, what is it?
Yeah.
Like, can you clarify a bit more?
No, for um like
Excuse me, Krishna.
so my thoughts, so thoughts come randomly in the mind. So what does it mean? So like, is it stored like someday I'm thinking of something in the past, and sometimes thinking of anything else. So does that come spontaneously? Look, like I'm not sure how to frame the question.
Okay, I will tell you from Vedanta. It says that these the thoughts are samskaras and the subliminal impressions, and everything is called in the stored in the chitta. It's kind of it's like a water in a beaker. Basically, it's always there, but what actually pops up and what does it meaning, and meaning I don't know, depends like why particular thought is coming at this particular time. I think it's mainly depends on the karma, means like the tendencies, subliminal impression to execute some karma, but I'm not sure. It's okay. I don't want to speculate too much into this thing. Sorry. Maybe you can ask some expertise there in your institute.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions from the audience? Done.
So if there is no more question, thank you everyone. I'm stop sharing.
Yes, sir.
If you have any question, you can drop email or something.
Sir, I would like to thank you. We are very grateful that you have joined us this morning and shared your knowledge on the nature of thought. It was a lovely presentation. And thank you so much for answering the questions also, sir. Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.